Admiral Jake Morrison looked out from the bridge of his ship at the empty space ahead. The stars looked peaceful, but he knew that would change soon. His ship, the Earth defense ship Defiance, waited with dozens of other human ships near Earth's outer edge. They had been waiting for 3 days now. "Admiral, the alien ships are coming," said Captain Lisa Hayes from her position at the control panel. She was his best officer, smart and brave. Her voice stayed calm even though they all knew what this meant. Jake nodded. He had expected this. For 3 months, the aliens had been sending messages to Earth. They called themselves the Galactic Council. They said they ruled most of the galaxy and wanted humans to join them. But Jake and the other Earth leaders knew what that really meant. The first alien ship appeared like a ghost in the darkness. Then another. Then 10 more. Soon there were 50 massive ships floating in space near Earth. They were beautiful, in a strange way, made of some kind of crystal that caught the light from distant stars. But Jake knew these ships carried weapons that could destroy planets. "They are trying to talk to us again," Lisa said. She touched a button, and the main screen lit up. An alien face appeared. It looked almost human, but with blue skin and 3 eyes. This was Ambassador Zelthar. He had been sending messages to Earth for months. "Humans of Earth," the alien said in perfect English, "this is your final opportunity. Join the Galactic Council peacefully. Give up your weapons. Let us guide your species to a better future. You have 1 day to decide." Jake had read all the reports about the Galactic Council. Every species that joined them lost their freedom. The aliens took their best people and sent them to work on other worlds. They took their resources, so they changed their cultures until nothing original remained. The Council called it peace, but humans had another word for it. "Send our answer," Jake told Lisa. She pressed another button. Jake's face appeared on screens throughout the alien fleet. He looked straight into the camera and spoke clearly. No, that was it. 1 word. But it said everything that needed to be said. The alien ambassador's 3 eyes widened. He had probably never been told no before. Most species in the galaxy feared the Council too much to refuse them. "You do not understand," Zelthar said. "We offer you peace and prosperity. Without our protection, your species will face dangers you cannot imagine." Jake smiled, but it was not a friendly smile. "We understand perfectly. You want us to become your slaves." The answer is still no. The communication ended. Jake knew what would happen next. The Council always followed the same pattern when a species refused them. First came economic pressure.
How?
Then isolation. Then threats.
War.
But humans had been preparing for this moment since the first alien ship had appeared in Earth's sky 3 years ago. While the Council thought humans were simple and primitive, Earth's best minds had been working in secret. Dr. Patricia Cole sat in her laboratory on the moon, watching the confrontation through her computers. She was Earth's top scientist and had spent 2 years developing humanity's secret weapons. Her hands moved across the control panel as she activated systems hidden throughout the solar system, all around. Earth's solar system, machines that looked like asteroids or space junk, suddenly came to life. These were humanity's defense platforms. Powered by experimental fusion reactors and armed with weapons the Council had never seen before, the alien ships began to move into formation around Earth. They expected a quick victory. Their databases said humans were a young species with primitive technology. They thought Earth would surrender within hours. They were wrong. Jake watched the alien fleet spread out. There were more ships than Earth had, but numbers were not everything. Humans had learned to fight by conquering their own world first. They had fought each other for thousands of years before reaching for the stars. War was something they understood. "Very well. All ships prepare for battle," Jake ordered. His voice went out to every human ship and defense platform in the solar system. "Remember, we are not just fighting for Earth. We are fighting for the right to be free." Lisa checked her instruments. "Admiral, they are powering up their weapons." "Let them," Jake said. "They are about to learn something important about humans." The Council ships fired first. Bright beams of energy shot toward Earth's defenses. But instead of destroying the human platforms, the energy was absorbed and redirected. The aliens had never encountered adaptive armor before. Jake gave the signal to return fire. Suddenly, space filled with weapons the Council had never imagined. Kinetic missiles that moved at incredible speeds. Energy beams that could cut through any material. Stranger things that seemed to bend the laws of physics. The first alien ship exploded in a ball of fire, then another. The Council fleet had expected easy prey but found hungry wolves instead. Back on Earth, Colonel Sam Rodriguez activated the second phase of humanity's plan. Hidden throughout the galaxy were ships that looked like peaceful explorers. For 3 years they had been mapping Council territory and gathering intelligence. Now their true purpose was revealed. These ships carried volunteers who had trained for this exact moment. They knew they might never return to Earth, but they also knew their mission was vital. They would take the war to the Council's home territory. Dr. Helen Grant worked from a secret facility in the asteroid belt. She had spent months studying intercepted Council communications. Now she prepared to broadcast the truth to every species in the galaxy. The Council had hidden their crimes for centuries, but humans would expose them all. The battle around Earth lasted 6 hours. When it ended, most of the alien fleet was destroyed or fleeing. Only 3 Council ships escaped to carry news of the defeat back to their leaders. Jake stood on his bridge and looked at the wreckage floating in space. This was just the beginning. Council would send more ships, bigger fleets. Thought they had made one crucial mistake. They had given humans time to prepare. And humans were very good at learning from their mistakes. Send a message to all human forces, Jake ordered. The war has begun. Show them what Earth's children can do. The galaxy was about to learn why humans had conquered their own world before reaching for the stars. The Council had wanted negotiation, but humans had chosen war instead. Now everyone would face the consequences of that choice. Commander Zexai of the Vorthon hegemony felt confident as he led his fleet toward Earth's outer defenses. His flagship was the largest in the Council's military, and 30 heavy cruisers followed behind him. The Council had given him simple orders: destroy the human defenses and force Earth to surrender. The databases told him that humans were primitive. They had only reached space a few decades ago. Their weapons were basic, their ships were small, and their military had no real experience fighting in space. This should be an easy victory. But as his fleet approached the asteroid belt, something felt wrong. His sensors showed what looked like mining equipment and old satellites, but there was too much energy coming from these objects. Commander Zexai had fought many battles, and he had learned to trust his instincts. Captain Roy Baker watched the alien fleet from his command post on Ceres Station. The station looked like a simple mining operation, but it was actually the control center for humanity's outer defense network. Baker had spent 20 years fighting in Earth's wars before joining the Space Defense Corps. He knew how to read an enemy's intentions. The Council ships moved in a standard formation. They planned to destroy the larger objects first, then sweep through the smaller defenses. It was a textbook approach that had worked against dozens of other species. But humans had studied those battles and learned from them. All stations, this is Baker, he said into his communication device. Remember what we practiced. Let them make the first move. Throughout the asteroid belt, defense platforms that looked like space junk powered up their weapons. These platforms had been built in secret over the past 3 years. Each one carried experimental weapons designed by Earth's best engineers. The Council had no idea what they were about to face. Commander Zexai gave the order to attack. Cannons on his ships fired bright beams of energy toward the human defenses. The energy should have melted through metal and destroyed the platforms instantly. Instead, something impossible happened. The energy beams hit the platforms and simply disappeared. Adaptive armor absorbed the plasma and redirected it into storage cells. The technology was beyond what the Council thought humans could develop. Their intelligence reports had been completely wrong. Baker smiled as he watched the alien weapons have no effect. Now it's our turn, he said. All platforms, open fire. Space suddenly filled with death. Kinetic missiles launched from hidden positions throughout the asteroid belt. These weapons moved at tremendous speeds, too fast for the Council ships to dodge. When they hit, the impact created explosions that could be seen from Earth, but the missiles were were just the beginning. Energy weapons that humans called starbreakers fired beams that could cut through any known material. Gravity bombs created small black holes that pulled enemy ships apart. Most terrifying of all were the reality shapers, weapons that seemed to change the basic laws of physics in small areas. The first Council ship died within minutes. The massive cruiser simply came apart as a gravity bomb tore through its center. Commander Zexai watched in horror as his fleet faced weapons that should not exist. "Retreat," he ordered. "All ships, retreat now." But it was too late for most of his fleet. The human weapons had been designed not just to destroy ships, but to send a message. Every Council vessel that died broadcast its final moments to the rest of the galaxy. The humans wanted everyone to see what happened to those who threatened. Earth, when the battle ended 6 hours later, only 3 Council ships escaped. Commander Zexai's flagship was destroyed, along with most of his crew. The survivors fled toward Council space, carrying news of a defeat that should have been impossible. Back on Earth, Colonel Sam Rodriguez received the signal he had been waiting for. The first battle was won, but the real war was just beginning. He activated Operation Wildfire, the most dangerous part of humanity's plan. Throughout the galaxy, ships that had been pretending to be peaceful explorers revealed their true nature. These vessels had been launched 3 years ago, when first contact was made. They had spent all that time mapping Council territory and identifying targets. The crews of these ships were volunteers who knew they might never see Earth again. They had trained for years to operate behind enemy lines. Now they would take the war directly to the Council's heart. Captain Ellen White commanded one of these hidden ships near the Kixani homeworld. Her vessel looked like a simple research craft, but it carried enough firepower to destroy a space station. More importantly, it carried something the Council feared even more than weapons: the truth. "Begin transmission," she ordered her crew. "Broadcast on all frequencies." Dr. Helen Grant's research began flooding the communication networks of every species in the galaxy. The data showed the Council's real history, how they had conquered peaceful worlds, how they had destroyed entire cultures, how they had enslaved billions of beings across the stars. For centuries, the Council had controlled information. They told each species that resistance was impossible, that cooperation was the only choice. But now every world could see the truth about their rulers. On the mining world of Kareth, workers stopped their machines and looked up at the sky. They had always been told that humans were violent primitives. But the human broadcasts showed something different. They showed that freedom was possible, that empires could be defeated. The Zephyrian Collective held emergency meetings on their homeworld. For generations, they had served the Council without question. But now they saw records of other species, who had been promised prosperity and received only slavery, even the Ethereal Union. One of the Council's founding members began to question their alliance. The humans had sent them detailed analyses of their own history, showing how Council membership had slowly destroyed their culture and creativity. Captain White and her crew began their first attack on a Council supply depot. The explosion could be seen from 3 star systems away. But the physical damage was less important than the psychological impact. The message was clear: humans could strike anywhere, anytime. Colonel Rodriguez coordinated attacks across the galaxy from his hidden command center. Human ships appeared like ghosts, struck their targets, and vanished before the Council could respond. Each attack was carefully planned not just for military value, but for maximum psychological effect. The Council had ruled through fear and overwhelming force. Humans turned those weapons against them. Every successful attack showed the galaxy that the Council could be hurt. Every broadcast revealed more of their crimes. Every victory inspired more species to resist. In just 1 week, the galaxy changed forever. The age of Council dominance was ending, and humans had barely begun to fight. High Counselor Velrath sat in the great chamber of the Council headquarters, staring at reports that made no sense. 3 months had passed since the war with humans began, and everything was going wrong. The species that had ruled the galaxy for 1,000 years was losing to primitives, who had barely learned to fly between stars. The numbers on his screen told a terrible story. 57 supply convoys destroyed. 23 communication stations offline. 41 worlds had stopped sending tribute payments. Worst of all, some council member species were openly questioning their loyalty. "This is impossible," Velrath said to his advisors. "How can one small world cause so much damage?" General Vekmer, the council's top military commander, looked tired and defeated. "The humans do not fight like other species. They ignore all the rules of warfare. They attack civilian targets. They use weapons that should not exist. They appear where they cannot be, then vanish before we can respond." On Earth, General Pete Collins studied star maps in his underground command center. Collins had learned warfare in the jungles and deserts of Earth, fighting enemies who had better weapons but less determination. He understood something the Council did not. When you cannot win through strength, you win through intelligence. The human strategy was simple but deadly. Instead of fighting the Council's massive fleets directly, human ships struck at the weak points that held their empire together. Supply lines, communication networks, the infrastructure that connected thousands of worlds. Target acquired, reported Lieutenant Kate Murphy from her position aboard the stealth ship Shadow. She and her team had spent weeks tracking the movement of Council intelligence vessels. Today, they had found their prize, the Nexus Prime, a ship that contained all of the Council's secret information. The Nexus Prime was protected by a fleet of warships, but humans had learned to think differently about protection. Instead of trying to fight through the guards, they would go around them. Kate's ship used experimental phase technology to slip through normal space like a ghost. Beginning infiltration, Kate whispered into her communicator, her team of 12. Soldiers moved through the alien ship's corridors like shadows. They'd studied Council ship designs for years and knew exactly where to go. But Kate had not come to destroy the ship. She had come to steal something far more valuable than any weapon. Information. In the ship's central computer core, her team found data that would change the galaxy forever. Every secret the Council had kept for centuries was there. Records of destroyed civilizations. Plans for cultural elimination programs. Lists of species marked for extinction. Evidence of crimes that reach back generations. "Upload complete," whispered Sergeant Dan Foster, Kate's technical specialist. "We have everything," Kate smiled.
Ow.
"Then let's share it with everyone." The broadcast began immediately. Every communication network in the galaxy suddenly carried the same signal. Council's secrets flooded the stars, reaching every world and every species. The truth about their rulers spread faster than light itself. On the mining world of Kareth, workers gathered around communication screens and watched video records of their homeworld before the Council arrived. They saw green fields and blue skies, not the gray wasteland of strip mines that existed now. They learned that their ancestors had been poets and artists, not just laborers. The Zephyrian Collective discovered that their entire history had been rewritten. Their sacred texts had been changed to support Council rule. Their heroes had been forgotten and replaced with Council propaganda. Millions of Zephyrians looked up at the stars and felt anger for the first time in generations, even the proud ethereal. Union found records showing how their culture had been slowly poisoned. Their beautiful philosophy of harmony had been twisted into a tool for control. Their art had been censored until only approved messages remained. High Counselor Velrath watched his empire begin to crack apart. Emergency meetings were called on dozens of worlds. Species that had served the Council faithfully for centuries suddenly demanded explanations. Some worlds stopped all cooperation with Council forces. "We must end this quickly," Velrath told his military commanders. "The humans are a virus spreading through our galaxy. If we do not stop them soon, we will lose everything." General nodded grimly. "I have a solution, but it violates every treaty of civilized warfare." "Tell me," Velrath said. "Antimatter weapons against their civilian populations. If we destroy their cities, the humans will surrender to save their remaining people." Velrath hesitated. The Council had rules about warfare, laws that had been followed for thousands of years. Deliberately targeting civilians was considered the mark of a barbaric species. But these were desperate times. Do it, he ordered. What you say? Target that will send the strongest message. The antimatter torpedo was loaded aboard the Council's fastest ship. The target was New Geneva on Earth, a city of 2 million humans who had never fired a shot in anger. The attack was designed to break human morale and force their surrender, Commander. Rick Stone was leading a patrol mission near Jupiter when the alert came through. His sensors detected the Council attack ship moving toward Earth at maximum speed. He realized immediately what was about to happen. All ships, intercept course. Stone ordered, emergency speed. But they were too late. The antimatter weapon detonated above New Geneva in a flash of light that could be seen from orbit. 2 million human civilians died in an instant. The city simply vanished, leaving only a crater of melted rock. The explosion was broadcast across Earth's communication networks. Every human on the planet saw their people murdered without warning. Children, families, ordinary people who had never hurt anyone were dead because they refused to surrender their freedom. Something changed in that moment. The last restraints on human warfare disappeared. The rules that had kept their most terrible. Weapons locked away were abandoned. The Council had wanted to see what monsters looked like. They were about to find out. Commander. Stone transmitted a message that reached every human force in the galaxy. The gloves are off. Show them what Earth's children can really do. Admiral Jake Morrison, still commanding the defense of Earth, made an announcement that chilled Council leaders throughout the galaxy. You wanted to see monsters. You were about to meet the species that conquered Earth. The real war was about to begin. President Maria Santos stood in the ruins of what had been New Geneva. The crater stretched for miles in every direction, still glowing with radiation from the antimatter blast. 2 million of her people were gone, turned to atoms in a single flash of light. The smell of death hung in the air. She looked directly into the camera that would broadcast her words across the galaxy. Her voice was calm, but her eyes burned with cold fury. The Galactic Council has chosen to murder our civilians, she said. They have broken every law of civilized warfare. Therefore, Earth withdraws from all galactic treaties and conventions. We now operate under total war protocols. Those words changed everything. For 3 months, humans had fought with restraint. They had followed rules, protected civilians, and tried to limit the damage of war. That was over now. Dr. Christopher Blake received the message in his secret laboratory, deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. He was the head of the Prometheus Project, humanity's most classified weapons program. For years, his team had developed weapons so terrible that they had never been tested. The government had called them too dangerous even for war. Not anymore. Begin Phase 7 protocols, Blake told his team. Authorization code, Pandora's box. His assistants looked at each other with fear and excitement. They all knew what Phase 7 meant. Humanity was about to show the galaxy weapons that violated the basic laws of physics. Captain Nicole Ford commanded the strike force that would carry humanity's answer to New Geneva. Her ships were loaded with reality bombs, weapons that could erase matter from existence itself. The target was the Kixani homeworld, home to Ambassador Zelthar, who had first demanded Earth's surrender. Remember, Ford told her crews over the communication system, "This is not revenge. This is a message. We want every species in the galaxy to understand what happens when you murder human civilians." The Kixani homeworld was one of the most beautiful in the galaxy. Crystal cities rose from purple oceans under 3 bright suns. Billions of beings lived there in peace and prosperity. They had never seen war, never felt fear, never imagined that their perfect world could be threatened. Ford's fleet emerged. From hyperspace, without warning, the Kixani Defense Forces scrambled to respond, but they were too late. The reality bombs were already falling toward their capital city. The weapon did not explode like normal bombs. Instead, it created a sphere of nothingness 3 kilometers wide. Everything inside that sphere simply stopped existing, not destroyed, not vaporized, but erased from reality itself. The space where the city had been became empty. Blackness that hurt to look at. The message was clear to every species. Watching, humans could delete parts of the universe itself, but the reality bombs were just the beginning. Across the galaxy, Other human forces unleashed horrors that the Council had never imagined possible. Major. Steve Carter led a team to Vorth Prime, the military heart of the Council forces. Instead of destroying the planet's defense systems, his team reprogrammed them. Every orbital platform, every missile battery, every weapon designed to protect the world suddenly turned against. Council ships the Vorthan military watched in terror as their own weapons fired on their own fleet. Ships that had served the Council for decades were torn apart by the very defenses they had helped build. On the ethereal Union's homeworld, human infiltrators deployed psychological weapons more terrible than any bomb. They broadcasted images of the ethereal's own poetry and art from before they joined the Council, then showed what their culture had become under Council rule. The ethereals prided themselves on beauty and creativity, but the humans proved that. Centuries of Council membership had turned their art into lifeless propaganda. The psychological impact was devastating. Entire cities of ethereals fell into despair as they realized how much of their soul they had lost. Meanwhile, Admiral Jake Morrison prepared for humanity's most audacious attack. The Council's leaders had retreated to the Concordance, a mobile capital ship the size of a small moon. It was protected by the combined fleets of 12 species and surrounded by defensive systems that had never been breached. Morrison did not plan to fight through those defenses. Human scientists had perfected quantum tunneling technology, allowing ships to phase through solid matter. The Council's impregnable fortress was about to become a trap. All ships begin phase sequence, Morrison ordered. His fleet seemed to disappear from normal space, becoming ghostly and translucent. Then they reappeared inside the Concordance itself. Emerging from the walls like spirits from another dimension, the Council leaders were holding an emergency meeting when human Marines materialized in their conference chamber. High Counselor Velrath looked up from his documents to find Colonel Sarah Martinez pointing a weapon at his head. "Gentlemen," Martinez said politely, "this meeting is now under new management." The psychological impact of this impossible assault shattered what remained of Council unity. Humans could appear anywhere, even in their most secure locations, then nowhere was safe. Species representatives fled back to their homeworlds, abandoning the Council to save themselves. On Earth, Dr. Blake activated the final phase of humanity's response. Hidden throughout Council space were nanomachines that had been spreading for months, invisible and undetected. Now, they activated. Beginning to disassemble Council infrastructure at the molecular level, space stations came apart like sandcastles. Communication networks dissolved into their basic elements. Even the mighty Council warships found their hulls crumbling as the nanomachines ate through their armor. But perhaps the most terrifying weapon was the simplest. Human psychologists had studied every Council species for 3 years, learning their fears, their weaknesses, their cultural pressure points. Now they used this knowledge to craft targeted propaganda that turned each species against the Council government. The Karathi miners were shown videos of their homeworlds, natural beauty before the Council stripped it bare. The Zephyrian Collective learned that their entire religion had been artificially created to make them obedient. Species after species discovered that their loyalty had been built on lies. Within weeks, the Council's 1,000-year empire was collapsing from within. Worlds declared independence. Fleets mutinied against their commanders. The Great Alliance that had ruled the galaxy crumbled as each species realized they had been slaves pretending to be partners. High Counselor Velrath found himself alone in his command center, watching his empire die. His advisors were dead or fled. His fleets were destroyed or turned against him. The Council that had seemed eternal was ending in chaos and fire. He sent one final message to the human forces. "What do you want from us?" The answer came from Admiral Morrison, broadcast to every surviving Council world. "We want you to understand that some things are worth fighting for. Freedom is one of them." High Counselor Velrath sat alone in the wreckage of his command center. The great chamber that had once hosted representatives from 1,000 worlds was now empty and dark. Broken screens flickered with damaged reports from across the galaxy. His empire was dead, and he was the last one left to watch it die. The humans had won. Not just the war, but something much more important. They had proven that the Council's way of ruling was wrong. For 1,000 years, the Council had told the galaxy that peace could only come through surrender. That freedom led to chaos, that strong empires were the only way to prevent war. Humans had shown a different path. Admiral Jake Morrison walked through the corridors of the Concordance, the massive ship that had once been the symbol of Council power. His Marines had secured every section, but they had not killed the remaining Council members. Instead, they had done something that shocked the galaxy. They had offered them mercy. "Your war is over," Morrison told Velrath when they finally met face to face. "But your life does not have to be." Velrath looked up at the human admiral with confusion. "You should execute me. I ordered the destruction of your cities. I murdered your people." Morrison nodded. "You did, and you will face justice for those crimes. But justice does not require revenge. Earth believes in something the Council never understood: redemption." 6 months after the war began, the galaxy was a different place. The Council's empire had collapsed completely, but something remarkable had taken its place. Instead of creating their own empire, humans had done something unprecedented in galactic history. They had helped their former enemies build something better. Dr. Patricia Cole worked with scientists from dozens of liberated worlds, sharing the technology that had won the war. The quantum tunneling systems, the adaptive armor, the fusion reactors that powered Earth's defenses, all of it was freely given to any species that wanted it. "Why are you giving this away?" asked Dr. Zethkin, a Kixani scientist whose homeworld had been partially destroyed by human reality bombs. "These weapons could make you rulers of the galaxy." Cole smiled. "That's exactly why we're giving them away. We don't want to rule anyone. We fought this war so that no one could rule any of us." Captain Lisa Hayes, now promoted to admiral, oversaw the dismantling of the Council's control systems. Monitoring stations that had watched every World 4, signs of rebellion were destroyed. Compliance chips that had been implanted in billions of beings were removed by human medical teams. Cultural suppression programs were ended. Species were encouraged to rediscover their lost traditions. The work was not easy. Many worlds had forgotten how to govern themselves after centuries of Council rule. Some species had lost their original languages and cultures completely, but humans helped them rebuild, sharing knowledge and resources without asking for anything in return. General Pete Collins established the Galactic Defense Initiative, a volunteer force designed to prevent any future tyrants from rising to power. Unlike the Council's military, membership was completely voluntary. Command positions rotated regularly between different species to prevent any one group from gaining too much control. The goal, Collins explained to the first mixed species, graduating class is not to conquer or control. It is to protect the freedom that so many died to achieve. The new organization was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Humans served alongside former Council species. Former enemies worked together, and every member had the right to leave at any time without consequences, but perhaps the most important change was philosophical. For thousands of years, galactic civilization had been built on the idea that the strong should rule the weak. The Council had convinced everyone that this was natural law, that resistance was impossible, that peace required submission. Humans had proven all of that wrong. Ambassador Ellen Rodriguez, Earth's first diplomatic representative to the new galactic community, met with leaders from hundreds of worlds. Her message was always the same. We offer partnership, not dominance. We believe in cooperation, not conquest. The Free Worlds Alliance grew slowly but steadily. Each member kept their own government, their own military, their own culture. They joined not because they were forced to, but because they chose to. And they could leave whenever they wanted. Some former Council worlds chose isolation instead, preferring to rebuild alone rather than trust any alliance. Humans respected that choice, and even helped them establish defenses against future threats. Colonel Sam Rodriguez, who had coordinated the guerrilla war against the Council, now worked to help former Council species deal with war criminals in their own governments. Many leaders who had collaborated with the Council's oppression faced justice. But it was justice administered by their own people according to their own laws. Revenge creates more enemies, Rodriguez explained to a gathering of Vorthan judges. Justice creates the possibility of peace. The galaxy slowly learned concepts that humans took for granted: individual rights, democratic decision-making, the idea that governments should serve their people, not the other way around. Most importantly, they learned that diversity made civilization stronger, not weaker. On Earth, President Maria Santos stood in the rebuilt city of New Geneva. The crater where 2 million humans had died was now a memorial park filled with trees. From every world in the galaxy, each tree represented a species that had chosen freedom over slavery. "We did not fight this war to conquer," she said at the memorial's dedication ceremony. "We fought to prove that conquest is not necessary. We showed the galaxy that the strong can choose to protect the weak instead of exploiting them." The ceremony was broadcast to every world in the galaxy. Billions of beings watched as representatives from hundreds of species planted trees together in the soil where humans had once died for freedom. High Counselor Velrath, now serving a life sentence for war crimes, but allowed to watch the ceremony, from his cell, finally understood what humans had been trying to teach the galaxy. Power was not about control. True strength came from lifting others up, not pushing them down. The age of empires was over. The age of cooperation had begun. And it had started with a single word that humans had spoken when the council demanded their surrender: no. Sometimes the most powerful response to tyranny was the simplest one. Sometimes the right choice was to fight rather than submit. And sometimes saying no to the wrong thing was the first step toward saying yes to something better. The galaxy had learned all of this from the species that Earth had made. The monsters that could erase reality itself had chosen instead to create something new, a future where freedom was not a privilege to be granted by rulers, but a right to be defended by all